Today we're going to review and practice how to evaluate integer problems using order of operations. Sometimes in math we may not be given problems with numbers, but instead a group of letters known as variables. So let's look at our first problem, D and then in parentheses C plus E. In order to evaluate that problem, we first need to plug in the numbers for those variables. So for instance, if I look at the first one is D, I'm going to go find that D in this problem is going to be 2. So I'm going to rewrite that. And then in parentheses I have C. I'm going to use my arrows to show which number is each letter. So C I can see as 8 plus E is going to be -6. So really, my mathematical problem becomes 2, and in parentheses, 8 plus -6. Now I just need to remember how to add and subtract and multiply integers. So first is parentheses, so I'm going to leave the 2 on the outside. And in parentheses, I have 8 plus -6. Since they're different signs, I'm going to subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2, and it's going to be positive because the 8 is positive. So now my problem is just 2 times 2. Remember, anytime that we have a number directly touching this parentheses, it means multiplication. So 2 times 2 is 4. Go ahead right now and solve this next one. Alright, so let's go over this second problem. I'm going to plug in my numbers for each letter. I see that A is 5, so this problem is now going to become 5 minus B is -3. Close my parentheses. My second parentheses should be -6, because that's what E is, minus A again, which is 5. Here I've got a lot of integers going on. Alright, so for the first parentheses, I have this double negative right here. 5 plus 3, which is 8. And my second parentheses, I have -6 minus 5. Now again, anytime we have a subtraction problem, we can turn it into an addition problem. So this is going to become -6 plus -5. So here, since I have same signs, I add and keep. So inside this parentheses becomes -11. Now 8 times -11 is -88. A positive times a negative is always a negative. Alright, go ahead now and try this next problem on your own. Alright, so let's go over B. I'm going to look back. I know B is -3. I'm going to plug -3 in for B, plus, follow your equation, A, which I see A is again 5, in parentheses, B, which again is -3, plus E, which again is -6. Now using order of operations, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite everything I'm not using. So I'm going to have -3 plus 5, And then I can solve what's in parentheses. -3 plus -6, same sign, add and keep. So it's going to be -9. Next step is to do my multiplication. So it's going to be -3 plus 5 times -9 is -45. And then my last step is to add -3 plus -5, which is going to be -48. Be sure you check and correct each of these before moving on. Alright, so here we're just stepping it up a level. Instead of being given the numbers for each variable, now we have to determine those based on the number line. So let's do the first one together. In my first parenthesis, so I'm going to plug in -5 for k. I need to add m to that. So again, I'm going to look back at my number line and I see that m is +4. Now I'm going to figure out my next parentheses. I have j. Again, I look back at the number line and j is -8. I need to add l to that. So again, I look back at my number line and I see that l is -2. So again, all I'm doing is plugging in my numbers for my variables and then solving. Plug and chug. Order of operations, let's solve what's in our parentheses. -5 plus 4 is -1. They're different signs, so I subtract, and I have more negatives. In my next parentheses, I have -8 plus -2, which is -10. -1 times -10 is +10. Again, when these parentheses are next to each other, they're touching, that means multiplication. Alright, use what we did. Go ahead, plug in your numbers for each of the variables in the next problem and solve on your own. Alright, so let's plug in and check this problem. So for L, I'm going to plug in -2. In my parentheses, I have m is 4. I'm going to subtract k, which is -5. And I'm going to square, I have -5 squared. So order of operations, I'm going to solve what's in my parentheses first. So I have -2 times, and I see this double negative again, 4 minus -5. That double negative becomes one big positive, so 4 plus 5 is just 9. Plus -5 squared. I need to do my exponents next. So I have -2 times 9 plus -5 times -5. So -5 times -5 is a positive 25. Multiplication next. -2 times 9 is -18. Plus 25 is going to be 7. Different signs, so I subtract. And there was more positive, so it's a positive 7. Alright, go ahead right now and on your own solve the next problem, plugging in the numbers for each variable. Alright, let's check this over. So for L, I should have -2 plus -5. Next parentheses, -2 for L, minus 4 for m. Solve what's in parentheses. -2 plus -5 is -7. Next parentheses, -2 minus 4 is -6. Again, I can rewrite this problem as -2 plus -4. And then multiplication, -7 times -6 is a positive 42. All right, go ahead and solve both of these problems on your own. All right, let's go ahead and go over number 1. So again, I'm going to plug in the values for each of my letters. So in my first parentheses, I have S plus Q. So I see that S is 4 plus Q, which is -8. My next parentheses is R, which is 2, minus P, which is -10. Order of operations, solve the inside the parentheses. 4 plus -8 is -4. Different signs, so I subtract. 2 minus -10. Again, I see this double negative, so I'm going to go ahead and make that one big positive. So 2 plus 10 is 12. Multiplication, last step, -4 times 12 is -48. All right, let's go over now number 2. Number 2 starts out with P, which is -10 up here. In parentheses, I have Q, which is -8, minus R, which is +2. Do what's in my parentheses first, -10 times -8 minus 2. And again, we can rewrite this as -8 plus -2. So that becomes a -10. And -10 times -10 is +100.